Part 5. The night chooses a side. The silence after the shadow's words felt heavier than the rain. Like the world itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what I would become next. I stood between them now. Not safe. Not human in the way I used to understand it. Just, caught between two truths that both felt like pain. The man didn't move, but I could feel it. His control over the situation was slipping. Not because he was weaker. Because I was no longer forgetting. The shadow smiled faintly. You feel it now, don't you? It whispered, the pieces trying to return to their place. And it was right. My memories weren't coming like flashes anymore. They were settling, like they had always belonged there. I pressed a hand to my chest. My heartbeat felt unfamiliar. Too slow. Too aware. Like something inside me was learning how to exist again. I don't understand, I whispered. But the truth was worse. I was beginning to understand. The man stepped forward slightly. His voice softened. That version of you, the one you're remembering, it's not you anymore. A pause. And I did everything I could to keep it that way. The shadow laughed quietly. Lies always sound like protection when they come from love. My head snapped toward it. Stop talking like you know me. It tilted its head. Oh, but I do. Then it said the sentence that made everything inside me freeze again. I was there the night you chose him, instead of your humanity. A sharp memory struck me. Not a vision this time. A feeling. Cold stone beneath my feet. Blood in the air. A choice I made willingly, not forced. My breath shook. That's not possible. But my voice didn't sound certain anymore. The man's expression changed instantly. He saw it. The doubt. The fracture forming inside me. You're being pulled back into a version of yourself that doesn't survive this world, he said quietly. And if that happens, I lose you completely. Something inside me tightened. Lose me, I repeated. My voice broke slightly. Or lose control of me. Silence. That silence hit harder than any answer. The shadow stepped closer now. Slow, certain. She's asking the right questions now, it said. Let's see if she can handle the answers. The air around us shifted again. And suddenly, the world around me split. Not physically, emotionally. Like two realities were trying to exist in the same space. In one version, he was reaching for me. Protective, desperate. In the other, he was standing still, watching, waiting, like he already knew how this ended. My vision blurred between them. What is happening to me? I whispered. The shadow's voice echoed softly. You're remembering the moment you stopped belonging to either side. My knees weakened, because now I could feel it. Something inside me was waking up. Not becoming human, not becoming vampire. Something in between. Something neither of them fully controlled. The man stepped closer again. This time, carefully, like approaching something dangerous. Not because it could hurt him, but because it could decide. You don't have to choose this path, he said. But even his voice sounded unsure now. I looked at him, then at the shadow, and for the first time, I realized both of them were waiting for the same thing. My decision. The wind rose again, and with it, the memories stopped fighting me. They aligned. A final flash hit my mind. A truth so sharp it made my chest ache. I didn't just love him. I changed because of him. And he changed because of me. The shadow smiled slowly. Now she understands. The man closed his eyes for a brief second. Like he was bracing for impact. And I finally whispered, if I remember everything, what happens to me? The shadow answered first. You stop being what he protected. The man answered next, softer. You stop being what I saved. A pause. The heaviest silence yet. And then, for the first time, I felt something inside me fully awaken. Not memory, not emotion, but choice. And I realized the terrifying truth. Whatever I choose next, someone in this story will lose me forever. To be continued. Part 6. The choice that breaks bloodlines. The moment I felt my decision forming, the world reacted. Not like thunder, not like wind, like reality itself had noticed I was no longer just an observer. The air between us tightened. The man watched me differently now. Not like someone he needed to protect. but like someone he could lose. The shadow stepped closer, voice almost gentle. Don't rush, it said. This is the first time you're choosing as yourself. My chest felt tight, because that was the problem. I didn't know who, myself, was anymore. A new memory surfaced, clearer than before. No longer broken fragments. A complete moment. A moonlit hall. I was standing in front of a council of figures wrapped in darkness. Not human, not fully alive, and I was speaking. I will not be owned by your rules, I heard myself say. My love is not your property. The room reacted instantly. Whispers turned into tension, and then, punishment. A voice from the council echoed. Then the human girl must be erased. I saw him, the man, standing at the edge of that memory. Watching, not moving, like a war was happening inside him that no one else could see. And then I saw it. The exact moment everything broke. He stepped forward, just one step, and said, "She is mine to protect." Not as possession, but as declaration. The council responded instantly. Then she becomes your curse. A flash of pain, a blade of fate, a life ending too quickly. I gasped back into reality. My knees almost gave out again. But this time, I didn't fall. Something inside me held me upright. Stronger than fear. The shadow watched carefully. So you remember the beginning of your downfall. I looked at it sharply. That wasn't downfall. A pause. It was war. The man's eyes shifted. Something inside him reacted to that word. Like he had been waiting centuries to hear me say it. I turned toward him slowly. And for the first time, I saw him clearly. Not as protector, not as danger, but as someone who had been fighting alone for too long. You didn't just save me, I said quietly. You broke their law for me. Silence. He didn't deny it. The shadow stepped between us again. And in doing so, it whispered. He bound your fate to his forever. My breath tightened. Not fear now. Understanding. Because suddenly I could feel it. A connection beneath everything. Not emotional. Not romantic. Something deeper. Like our existences were threaded together from the beginning. The man finally spoke. Softly. I didn't want you to remember it this way. My voice trembled. Then how was I supposed to remember it? He looked at me for a long moment. And said, as someone who still chose me, even after knowing what I am. The wind stopped completely. And then the shadow laughed. Not loudly, but with certainty. You still think she chose you? A pause. Tell her the part you erased. The air shifted instantly. My body stiffened. What did it mean? I whispered. Erased. The man closed his eyes. Just for a second. Too long to be accidental. And when he opened them again, there was something new there. Something I hadn't seen before. Fear of truth. You were not supposed to remember that version of yourself, he said slowly. The one who refused me. The words hit differently. Not pain. Shock. I took a step back. Refused you. The shadow smiled. There it is. My voice cracked slightly. You're saying I didn't choose you? Silence. The kind that answers everything. And then he said it. Quiet. Honest. Not the first time. The world went still again. A new memory tried to rise. But this time, it didn't feel like remembering. It felt like becoming something else entirely. And I realized, this story wasn't about love anymore. It was about repetition. About fate refusing to end what it started. The shadow leaned in. Now, it whispered, choose again. The man stepped forward at the same time. Don't listen to it, he said. But his voice wasn't commanding anymore. It was pleading. And I stood there, between a truth I feared, and a truth I didn't fully trust. And for the first time in this entire story, I understood what the real horror was. Not him, not the shadow, but the fact that every version of me always ends up here. And I finally whispered, if I choose wrong again, do I disappear? The shadow answered softly, no. A pause. You just become the version of you that the world survives. To be continued. Part 7, the version the world survives. The words hung in the air like a sentence already passed. The version of you that the world survives. It didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a decision that had been made long before I was ever born. I looked at him. Really looked this time. Not the mystery. Not the danger. But the exhaustion behind his eyes. Like he had been holding something together for centuries, and I was the only thing keeping it from collapsing. The shadow stood between us, calm as ever. Now you understand the cycle, it said softly. Every time she remembers too much, she reaches a breaking point. A cycle. That word echoed inside me. Like something had clicked into place. My voice came out quieter than I expected. How many times? Silence. Even the shadow paused. The man looked away, just slightly, but it was enough. My chest tightened. How many times have I been here? I asked again. The shadow smiled faintly. Enough for him to memorize every version of your goodbye. A sharp breath caught in my throat. No anger. No fear. Just something deeper. Sadness without explanation. I turned to him, and this time, I didn't wait for him to control the moment. Tell me, I said. Don't protect me from it anymore. His expression changed. Something broke through his control. Not power. Restraint. You always say that, he said quietly. And every time, it ends the same way. The wind moved again, but differently now, like it was circling us instead of pushing us apart. The shadow stepped back slightly. Almost, giving space, as if this moment belonged only to us. And then, he spoke, slowly, carefully, like every word had consequences. The first time I found you, he said. You were human. A pause. And I wasn't supposed to feel anything. My breath slowed. Something inside me already knew this wasn't new information. But hearing it, made it real. I broke the rule, he continued. And you paid for it. The rain started again, softly. Not violent, almost like the world was listening. You didn't just die once, he said. You were removed, rewritten, returned. My hands trembled slightly, not from fear, from realization. The shadow's voice cut in softly. And every time she returns, she remembers a little more, and trusts a little less. I whispered, so I'm not living a life. A pause. I'm repeating one. Silence answered. The man stepped closer, careful, like approaching something fragile that might shatter truth itself. No, he said softly. You're changing it. That stopped me. I looked at him. What do you mean? His eyes held mine, and for the first time, there was something like hope inside them. Small, dangerous, because this time, he said, you didn't run from the memory. The shadow stiffened slightly, just enough for me to notice. A shift, something not part of the pattern. The shadow's tone changed. That shouldn't be happening. My heartbeat slowed. Not fear now. Focus. I turned slightly between them. What changes if I don't run? The man didn't answer immediately. But his silence felt heavier than words. And then he said it. Quiet, but final. You stop repeating. The wind stopped again. For the first time, the cycle felt like it had a crack in it. The shadow stepped forward quickly. No, it said sharply. She is not meant to stay aware long enough to break it. The air darkened again. Not natural, like reality itself was tightening. And I felt it. Something inside me resisting. Not breaking. Holding. The man reached out slowly. Not to take control, but to ground me. To remind me I was still here. And then he said the words that changed the direction of everything. If you choose to stay aware, you won't just remember us. A pause. You'll remember why it started. My breath caught. Because suddenly, that felt like the only truth that mattered. The shadow whispered one final warning. If she remembers the beginning, she won't belong to either of you. And I realized something terrifying. That wasn't a threat, it was a prediction. The world trembled faintly around us. Like a story preparing to collapse into its origin. And I stood there, between the one who broke the rules for me, and the one who remembers every version of me dying, wondering what kind of truth could possibly be strong enough to end a cycle that never ends. And then I whispered, show me the beginning, to be continued.